So, in case you missed it, there was a TMZ Sports report that came out recently with a video included of one of their paparazzi reporter, whatever you call the people who work for TMZ, who tracked down Lonzo Ball at LAX airport the other day and got a few, albeit, concise answers from him, some answers from him about how he's doing in his rehab following his most recent knee surgery. And we've heard throughout the offseason that things have been going well from Lonzo or from other members of the Bulls staff who expect him to be available, who expect him to be participating fully in training camp. We just learned, I think, early on last week that he is confirmed to be playing 5-on-5 scrimmage basketball, including full contact. And there have been videos surfacing around various social media platforms that prove that fact that we have all seen. So his quick, 1 or 2 word answers that he got or that he gave to TMZ is that his recovery is, quote, going well. And when asked what NBA fans and Bulls fans can expect to see from him this upcoming season, he said, quote, me back on the court. That's all I want to do. Now, you wrote a great column recently comparing the Lonzo Ball effect and what Lonzo Ball provided for the Bulls in that tragically short half a season when he came on board, and potentially Giddey being a Lonzo Ball light kind of replacement. Woj even mentioning that when he first reported the Caruso for Giddey trade, and that's how the Bulls front office is viewing Josh Giddey. But now we have this weird situation where if things continue to go well in Lonzo's recovery, Giddey is here to be his replacement, but Lonzo's still here, and wondering about minutes restrictions, wondering about how much Lonzo feels like he is ready to play on a nightly basis, and what Billy Donovan wants to do about it.
I think that it's just going to be a fascinating thing. I mean, basically, Mark Eversley told us when we were in Las Vegas, like, we expect Lonzo to be back in training camp, but beyond that, we just don't know. And I think that's the right approach. It's like he's been out for, it will have been 1,000 days, 998 days since he played his last basketball game, if he is available to be on the court for the start of the NBA season. So 1,000 days. I mean, he just, like, you cannot bank on anything with him. And I think it would be a great feel good story. It would be, exciting to get him back on the court. And it would be like, just a nice story to cover. But I don't think that necessarily means that you can expect him to turn back into a 34-minute-a-night guy who's given you, 14 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and a block. Like, that's just unrealistic expectations. And not saying anybody feels that way, but I think if he ever is able to get back to that, which was, the best basketball of his career, it would be a miracle because people don't recover from, 2, 3, surgeries in a row like this and being out for 2 straight seasons, 2.5. So all that to say, like, I'm very much tempering my expectations. It will be great to see him back on the court. And I think one of the things that I tried to write about in this was that, like, I don't view Josh Giddey as a Lonzo replacement. I think thinking about it that way is kind of flawed logic because, like, he's been gone for 2.5 years. I mean, how can you be trying to replace him still? I just don't think that recipe is going to work anymore, especially with the rest of the team around him changing so much. So I don't think that's the best way to do it. I actually think Lonzo and Josh Giddey would be a great combination because they really complement each other. The areas where I think they are similar is obviously like the transition and the passing. But Lonzo is very much like not a guy who could put pressure on the rim, similar to Giddey. Not a guy who was giving you any scoring, but he was a ball mover. He did not stop the ball. He would get shots up at volume, at high percentage. Giddey doesn't do that. The ball does stick with him at times. I think he's a good passer and a good playmaker, but he's not like making really snappy decisions to keep the defense on tilt. I think he's a good creative playmaker when he has the ball in his hands and he can survey. But what made Lonzo so special was like DeRozan, Levine, Vooch drawing two to the basketball, kicking it out to Lonzo, where he would either shoot 7.5 threes a game at 43%, or keep the ball moving and keep the advantage alive. And I just don't think we haven't seen that from Giddey. Not to say he can't do it, but that's just not who he is, has been to this point in his career. So I think they'd complement each other well because Lonzo is a great defensive player and Giddey is not. He's a great shooter and Giddey is not. He can play off of guys, and that's what made him so special. But Giddey, I think, is going to need the ball in his hands a lot. And so, going back to Lonzo's role with this team, I don't know what you would think about this, Matt, but like I do not see him starting. I do not see him playing more than like 15, 20 minutes a game at the very most. Certainly at the start of the season. I'm curious to hear what the Bulls have to say about it, but there's no way we go into the season and he's playing big minutes. I cannot see them, not being super careful with where he is. And that's part of it too, is like the production's not going to be there because the minutes aren't going to be there. And
We're,
so I just think we need to be careful about that. But at the same time, he was such a special, connective piece, complementary player where he was defending at the highest level, where he was shooting threes at the highest level, where he was keeping the ball moving. And that was stuff that this Bulls team just could not survive without.
yeah.
So definitely not to take away from it, but I'm hesitant that we're going to see that again because of just the incredible amount that he's had to go through over these past 2.5 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think I am more optimistic now than I have ever been in the long saga of Lonzo's injuries and multiple surgeries that we will see him on the court this upcoming season. And like, unless there is a setback, and of course we know that that's possible because there's been dozens of them over the course of these, 3 years nearly. DeBears 1920 in the comments saying, "I'll believe it when I see it." I'll believe it when I see it is kind of how I feel about Bulls fans who think that Lonzo is going to have a big role again on this team, as you were just kind of articulating. Like, I do believe now, after having not believed it for months and years recently, that we might actually see Lonzo on the court. I do not believe he's going to be out there playing every game and playing heavy minutes, and even as some Bulls fans are thinking, starting, as a member of the starting five. I do not think those things are likely. And I also like. I think you're right in that he could pair well with Giddy. The other thing, and Matty Legend in the comments saying, I just hope Lonzo can be a decent shooter off the bench at the very least. That's what I'm thinking about as far as if Lonzo is healthy enough to play and does play this season. The ideal role for him could very well be being a veteran glue guy for a bench unit that could have a lot of young players in it and not necessarily worrying about is Lonzo healthy enough? Does he have the conditioning to start and play heavy minutes? But if he can give you some decent minutes, one stint each half off the bench where he can kind of be a veteran leader vocally and anchor defensively for a young unit that might a young second unit that will feature some combination of the rookie Modest Buzelas, Julian Phillips, Dalen Terry, some of these other young pieces where you're probably going to want some sort of veteran presence in there.
Absolutely. I think, when you're listing off those guys, it's still the issue is none of them are really good at putting pressure on the rim. And so I think the Bulls are going to need to, and they don't really have anybody in the starting lineup that can do that reliably either. I mean, Zach, if he gets back to that point, but yeah, and Kobe has done it to a certain degree, but like that's the biggest thing that this team is missing. And it's, I think, why we both expect them to take a big step back. But I mean, we've got people in the comments right now, Fish, Skokes, Strick, guys that have literally been watching us since day one of CHGO in March 2022. Lonzo Ball has not played since prior to that. I have been on the beat for 2.5 years, and I have never covered a game that Lonzo Ball has been in. You guys have been with us
Wild.
for the entire existence of CHGO, and obviously we thank you guys so much for that. But that has been everything that we have done here has come after Lonzo got hurt. And so I just say that to put in perspective how crazy a journey he has been through, and just how long it's been since he's been out there. I think expecting anything other than, like you said, I mean, a stint per half. Maybe he's starting the second quarter and playing, 3 to 5 minutes off the bench, moving the ball, getting up and down a little bit, defending, shooting some threes, and playing literally like 8 to 10 minutes a game to start the season. That would be a huge win in my book because he's back on the court playing NBA basketball after having a cartilage transplant in his knee and having 3 consecutive surgeries and 1,000 days of not playing professional basketball. So to me, that would be a massive win. I still think that like there's stuff he can do because he's such a good shooter, because he's such a genius. Just like his spatial awareness and his understanding of how defenses work and how to manipulate that. I think he can come out there and shoot threes and maybe defend a little bit and keep the ball moving, hit head passes, things like that. But I don't see him necessarily getting back to that level. And maybe he, comes back. He's still young. He's like 25, 26 years old. Maybe he's able to get to that point, but I think it's going to be a long road. It's not going to just be like he's back right away. And so we'll just have to get him, progressing. I think that's going to be the name of the game. It's just, day by day, continuing to get better and more healthy.
We all silly like the mayor.